One of my favorite stories or folk tales comes from the Balkans, specifically in the former Yugoslavia or Bosnia, Croatia, Serbian region of the Balkans. And I mostly get this tale actually from my good friend who is a Serbian anthropologist. So she's grown up a lot of this folklore, but she's also studying it now as an adult. So she studies a lot of like Balkan, but particularly Serbo-Croatian, particularly Serbian ritual, folklore, magic, and religion. So this tale actually mostly comes from the Serbo-Croatian side, not too much of the Bosnian side, and it or the Bosniak side. And the story is about how man was created. And it starts off with this notion of the devil and God as co-creators of the world. In certain versions of the story, God is like the father of the devil or brothers to the devil, or he created the devil as an assistant or partner company. But there's this idea that essentially they all had a hand in creating the world. That's part of the reason why the pear tree is considered like a demonic, like devilish tree in the ecosystem in Serbo-Croatian folklore because that tree was specifically made by the devil. So God at one point either gets very fed up with the devil or annoyed, or he just wants one creation to himself, that is, man. So he forms the body for Adam out of earth, like from the Bible, because this is a Catholic Christian culture Orthodox culture. So he forms man out of earth, and then he goes away to fetch the breath or the spirit, the soul of man, so he can breathe it back into him. But the devil goes ahead out of annoyance to mess it up for God. And he pokes 41 holes in the body of man, in the body of Adam. So when God comes back and he breathes the spirit into Adam, it starts leaking out through all these 41 holes, and panicking, not knowing what to do, God just goes ahead and grabs 40 herbs, like 40 leaves, herbs, roots, and plugs them all into 40 of those 41 holes. So there's only one hole unplugged. And the story goes that because of this, there's always that one hidden hole, like invisibly on the body, from which our spirit is like slowly, gradually leaking out. And this is the reason why we age and we eventually die and we're mortal beings. The spirit is not trapped to our body. And what's really interesting in the story is actually I was told about this in the context of Gledania Pasulia or Favomancy or Kumalak as it's known in some countries. But within the Balkans, it's mostly Gledania Pasulia, which means gazing into beans, and it's the traditional form of divination within the Balkans. It's bean divination, but the constant that everybody uses 41 beans. The Bosniak and like Albanian, which are like Muslim cultures, their story for why it's 41 is very different. In this case, also you see just reasons for why 41 is a very special sacred number. It was there at the very beginning of the creation of man, but also this informs as well why in many like Serbian or Serbo-Croatian forms of like ritual magic for healing or like healing rituals, you have 40 herbs. In some cases, you don't doesn't matter what herbs they are, just as long as it's 40 herbs, because it's the idea of like 40 things that plug up those 40 holes. Like the first time man was healed and like death was prevented. In some cases, just like one needs to be basil, but otherwise 40 herbs, so long as like one's basil. But then also the number 40 comes from likely Jewish, Muslim, Christian traditions of like fasting for 40 days or mourning someone for 40 days or purification and ritual cleanliness of 40 days. Um, so there is that influence of those things being interpreted in this regional cultural tale. There is also the devil and God as two forces creating the world. It comes from like the Bosnian like Bogomil heresy of like two equally prominent forces of good and evil, which is not very friendly within canon Orthodox or Catholic forms of Christianity. Um, and then even like folklore about one of the reasons why witches are scary is because they have the power to find which hole on your body or where it is that they can like swap your spirit out. So there's all this like ritual, spiritual, mythological context to this one story that you see in a lot of like culture and myth and history poured into. And it's really fascinating.